All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust meeting, September 23rd, 2025. I'll call the meeting to order. Item 2 on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the August 26th, 2025 meeting. We can take a motion. We have a motion and a second. The item passes. Item 3 on the agenda is the ratification of claims for August 2025. We can take a motion on that as well. Item passes. Brings us to items for individual consideration. Item 4A is a joint resolution with the City of Oklahoma City approving the allocation of GOLT bond and/or investment proceeds in an amount not to exceed $600,000 for ARL Biopharma. Mr. Sittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're excited about this SIP offer to come forward, $600,000. This will be based on the creation of 433 jobs. I will point out your memo says over 7 years. That's kind of our standard period. We do think they'll produce that in 5 years, but it gives them 7 to hit that number. Average annual wage of $67,920 in the first year, hoping that grows to $76,444 by the 5th year. And you'll see there, that also we're hoping that really starts with, payroll of 2.5 million growing up to almost 30 million. So I will just say, and we're going to have the Chief Operating Officer come up, Vince Bobbin, will come give us a presentation here. And you can go ahead and start making your way. But just again, we're excited that, I think this ticks a lot of boxes for us in terms of being, in the biotech and pharma area. And it's something that would help, expand these jobs and kind of a new line of business here in Oklahoma City. So we're excited, with all the other efforts we've been doing through MAPS and other things trying to make this industry grow here. So turn it over to you, Vince.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate you giving us the time to present to you this afternoon. Like I said, my name is Vince Bobbins. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for ARL Biopharma. I'll be representing us this afternoon. Let's see, getting a hold of this mouse. All right, so just a little bit about us. We are in Oklahoma City. We're currently headquartered in the OU Research Park. We're well over now 450 employees. And we service a very large variety of clients. I'll get into that in a little bit in future slides. But that is a little bit unique for us, is that we have a significant number of folks that we can pull on in terms of the market that we're trying to serve. So our mission essentially is to provide high quality laboratory service to the pharmaceutical industry. And so we're doing that primarily quality and customer service. So we value technical competency, integrity and collaboration. So as a laboratory, right, we're always as good as the work that's behind the paper that we provide to our clients. So doing it right and doing it the right way is core to who we are. Our clients. So I know one of the key things for us is we bring money into the state of Oklahoma, into Oklahoma City. So 95% of the revenue that comes into the company is from clients that are outside of Oklahoma, right? We're always happy to serve folks here, but a lot of the east-west coast and along the southern tier there is where a lot of our business comes from. And there's a lot of opportunity to continue to increase and grow that revenue. So getting into a little bit about what the market is that we serve. So right now we're doing a lot with pharmacies. So that's about a little over 80% of what we do. But we are only serving around 20% of the total pharmacies that do business in the U.S. Another one that we've got is hospitals. We've got even a smaller share of the folks there. And then your larger pharmaceutical market is really, really large. And there's tremendous opportunity in that arena. So where are we going? So we've been doing this in terms of our opportunities to grow. We've been growing over the past 25 years. This represents a little bit about the past 9. And actually the past 3, we've been ever increasing with some of the industry changes and things that are going on that have enabled the company to succeed. So about this specific project, we've got a couple of things driving. So one is just the market's getting bigger, and so we've got more opportunities to get into it. We plan to bring some new services in. So there's some new technologies that have come online that allow some of the testing to occur faster. We want to bring those on and have a different option for some of our clients. And then the other one is we are looking to bring in a different line of business, so protein characterization, which people call biologics, some of the vaccine virus type stuff. That's an area that's an underserved market. There's a lot of activity on it, and on the laboratory testing side, that's still an area that folks need help with. So that's something that we're starting to bring on board in our testing suite. Helps us increase our revenues as well as diversify the current offerings. A lot of the jobs that are coming in are STEM, so they're science, they're chemistry, they're microbiologists. That fuels the laboratory side. But then we need all of the support people. We need our IT folks, our purchasing, our accountants, and all of the things that make the business side of the shop go, right? And we have a really nice benefits package for the folks that come on. Of note in the application was your medical, dental, and vision. We also have a real nice paid time off and family leave plan as well. So where are we? Oklahoma City. So like I said, we're in the research park. As we looked at how we're going to accommodate this growth, we looked at a couple of different places. Orlando down in Florida. There's a facility in Chicago near Abbott that we looked at. But ultimately, most of our core function is here. And so we get a lot of synergy having people with the management, with the leadership staff. And in working with some of the folks from the chamber and as yourselves, helping us to offset the growth with some of these incentive packages is a significant reason why we wanted to stay here in Oklahoma City and do the growth here. So the facilities we're looking to put in will be a mixture of lab and office. Even when you have the lab staff, they still generally sit outside the lab. So I consider that office space, even though it's lab adjacent. And some of that will be brand new builds, and some of that will be retrofit of existing space or new space that we would acquire. So anticipate it to be a little bit of both. But again, that's a fair amount of capital that's needed to facilitate that. And I'd mention one of the things specifically. This is one of our new offerings. So bioanalytical testing. Again, this gets into the protein peptide characterization. This again is helpful obviously for clients outside, but also for some of the folks that are here. So your biomanufacturers, which already exist here in Oklahoma and is something that I know that collectively we're all trying to grow, that benefits, we can benefit them, they can benefit us. These are services we'd be able to offer for them, and they'd be able to say, hey, we have partners right next door that can help us do that. So that's something that we're working on, partnering with folks as well. And then, again, we're part of the community. So we live here, we work here, and I know our CEO, Dr. Kupik, is a big fan of Oklahoma. He does a lot of philanthropy within the city. You've got our YMCA. I actually just started coaching the volleyball for U11 to help my daughter out. So. We appreciate the infrastructure and the benefits that the city provides to us, and we want to be good partners and stewards going forward. So, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to
Any questions
clarify.
from Mr. Baldwin?
We're excited you're staying here. Thank you very much.
How's volleyball going? Is it going
We're 2-0.
pretty good? Okay. 2-0? There
Yeah,
you go, undefeated. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions or comments, we can take a motion. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And the item passes. Thank you, Mr. Bobbin.
Thank you very much.
Brings us to item 4B, a professional services agreement with the City of Oklahoma City and Sasaki Incorporated, the amount of $750,000 for the Downtown Strategic Development Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this idea kind of really started on the city side, and just to point out, the reason the Economic Development Trust was brought in is it relates to a lot of, obviously, the economic development going on but also the city desires that we kind of split some of the costs. So the 750,000, 500,000 of that would be paid for by the city funds. 250 would come out of general economic development funds from this trust. But what we're doing here is this kind of between the city, Downtown Inc., the Chamber, the Alliance, all of us have begun, discussing just all the developments going on, and there's a lot coming in the next 5 years. Looking at with the Olympics, looking at the new multipurpose stadium, looking at the Thunder Arena. There's more than 300 acres of developable property in our core. And so this is really looking at, we start talking about, we need to make sure we're identifying all the issues, planning this out, trying to facilitate discussions between private developers and the public. And so this is really an attempt to do that. What the scope would be, and we did an RFP for this, we received 13 proposals, some really strong local and national partners. This group was selected. Sasaki's the lead, but they also have Kimley Horn involved. They have a local A&E firm, Mantra, involved. They have SB Friedman, who's an economic development analysis group, involved. And what the scope of this would really be looking at land use issues, infrastructure issues, transportation, parking issues, security issues, and also how would things be absorbed in this market, looking at things like how much office space could be absorbed, how much entertainment type things, how many keys of hotels, how many residences could be built in downtown. And it's primarily focused on kind of like Northwest 13th to the river, Western to I-235, I-35, and really just trying to make sure we look at really issue spotting, infrastructure, all those things I mentioned. So it's a lot of development going to be happening. We've got a couple $1 billion probably of public money that's going in, and who knows how much private money. We're hoping even more than that. So this is really an effort to try to study that and look at it and try to make sure we develop all of this the right way. That's kind of the general thing. There was group on the selection committee that had representatives from the Chamber, the Alliance, the city. The planning department's kind of running lead on this, but there'll be a steering committee with lots of those same stakeholders and business leaders, Chamber folks, et cetera, on there just as we go through this. It's about a 10-month process is what's estimated, and in your packet you can look in there and kind of see a little bit more on the scope and timeline, but be happy to answer any other questions on it.
I got a couple of questions. When I went on the council a few years ago, we were operating under a comprehensive plan. I think it dated circa 1977 and hadn't been touched and needed to be updated. Do we have a strategic development plan that's currently in place, or is this just a total new concept?
Well, I think this would be a new concept focused just on downtown. There's been several studies. It will incorporate, and they've been given all those different studies, whether it's the Core to Shore implementation plan, the city's comprehensive plan, other plans. But it's specifically focused on kind of looking forward. And this is a little different than what some other large cities have done, where they've done these types of studies as a way to try to create reasons or look at reasons to make investments. We're a little different, that we have all these investments already approved and funded through MAPS and GeoBond, et cetera. It's really looking at, okay, you've got all this stuff going, now let's look at it from a big picture standpoint and try to make sure that we look at things like ingress, egress, parking, infrastructure, all those things. We do it the right
so
way.
We're looking at a larger area. This isn't something we've done before.
Yeah, it's really looking at downtown and a little bit of the outer ring of downtown as well.
And then can you tell us a little bit about the consultant places, other places they've done work, so we can see some of the things they've done?
Yeah, and you guys may have to help me on this because I've slept since then, but that was one of them, and Justin Henry's here from Planning Department. He's helping coordinate. But I know they've worked with, I believe, Denver, Nashville.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember where
Denver,
else.
Houston. They've worked for Nashville. I think they're doing Baton Rouge right now as well. Yeah.
And they several of their, some of the folks they've worked with have done, like Kimley Horn and others have done work in lots of other large cities as well.
Well, with a new arena, new stadium, et cetera, I'm excited about this. I think it's good for the city.
Yeah, hopefully we're trying to be strategic and not just everything we do.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other comments? So what do? They just produce a plan and say, hey, here's your plan?
Well, I think what it is looking, they're going to do a pretty deep dive on looking at planning things that have happened so far, looking at kind of current infrastructure, and really part of it's looking at sort of some of the proposed developments, what impacts do those have? So for example, where I'll just use the Producers Co-op area, we're putting the new soccer stadium or multi-purpose stadium there. What would the development look like there? So they'll interact with the developer, is it residential, is it office, what are you looking at doing? What kind of demands do those create on traffic, on the need for people moving, on infrastructure? That's another example I'll use because ingress egress is interesting between there. It's hard to get under the railroad and there's only one way in currently on the north side. It'll bring a lot of activity, a lot of things there. So what all things do we need to be focused on? And then you've got, proposed developments at the boardwalk or around, the new Thunder Arena. How do those all work together? So they'll look at things like parking, transportation studies, just for those areas, infrastructure studies, security issues. But one of the other things that the economic folks will look at is they kind of will look back at our history on how we've developed and how this market has absorbed like downtown residences, how it's absorbed hotel keys, office space. And so they'll do some projections and help us look at some of those things as well. Like if everybody goes and tries to build the same thing at the same time, and some of it's obviously we can't control, the private sector can do mostly what they want to do, but we can influence and policy we make, how we incentivize things, and that's where they'll come back with recommendations. Here's things you need to fund on the infrastructure side. And I know we have some, if the voters approve, some of the things we've approved or put on for the voters to look at in the GO bond are like some infrastructure dollars for downtown. And in our economic development goal proposition, we've put dollars for infrastructure. So if with the voters' approval, some of those tools might be available to help us look at what recommendations we would do to make all this stuff work together the right way.
Thank you. All right, we can take a motion on item 4B. We have a motion and a second. The item's passed. Item 4C is plans and specifications with City of Oklahoma City to be advertised for bids for the Myriad Gardens chilled water installation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this is one, as you'll recall, we allocated funds from TIF 8 to fund this project to help the Crystal Bridge. This is one piece of it. I believe this is like a connecting line between, what's the name?
Chillers?
The chiller lines, yeah. So this is just the plans and specs to put this out for bid.
Okay, we can take a motion. Motion and second. The item passes. Item 4D is the assignment of earned film incentives per agreement with Safe House Films LLC to be assigned to the Huntsman Film LLC, not to exceed $64,813 for the feature film project, Project Mystery. Mr. Siddle?
Yes, sir. So this was a deal that we had approved previously. I believe, Joanna, they've completed all of their requirements to receive this incentive of the $64,813. Apparently, this is somewhat common in the industry that they have an entity that does the production, and then they create another entity that does all the financing of the project. So they've requested to be able to assign these dollars that they've earned to the related financing entity, and that's really pretty much what this request is.
No questions? We can go ahead and take a motion. Please vote. And item 4D passes as well. Item 4E is amendment number 2 to the Villa Teresa Hotel and Residential Redevelopment Project Agreement. Mr. Siddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I'm going to try my best to explain this a little bit, of a long story, but this agreement, if you'll recall, we had a TIF2 deal with the Villa Teresa. Both the hotel and residential was kind of a package deal that both pieces would be redeveloped. The incentives were not to exceed a little under $1 million. There's about, the hotel, I believe, had about $450,000. The residences had about $527,000. They had to, under the current deal, they had to complete both things, spend a certain amount of money to get incentives for either one of those. So they built the residences. They're the residences that are kind of along Dewey, and if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, that's completed. They've actually been receiving increment off those residences, or it's been generated, but they've not received anything developer, because the hotel project, unfortunately, this was approved in January of 21, so we're kind of in the middle of that COVID crisis, and it's been just delayed and delayed and delayed. So they still intend to move forward with this. And just to be transparent, what we're trying to do is separate this out, take the, with TIF2 expiring, we're taking the hotel piece out of the deal. They still would not get nothing changes on the amount that would be applicable to the residential side, but they would still have a requirement that they have to get the hotel completed, up to 50% completed of that project before they can receive those funds that have been generated on the residences side. So the residences side, we've been basically escrowing those so that if they hit these, completion benchmarks, they could get those incentives for what was built. We're trying to still make this hotel happen, and it's probably the harder project. Marva's here if you have any questions for her, but basically it's a historic project. These projects are very difficult, and we're trying to set the stage of, could we potentially look at putting this in maybe the Classen corridor TIF, just the hotel piece, to be able to bring back some incentives in the future for that piece. But I'm just want to be upfront with you that that's something we're considering and looking at. But in the meantime, for the completed part, to get anything, we would need to kind of separate this out. But they would still have that requirement. They get it at least 50% completed on the hotel to get anything for the residences. So, and again, there's no guarantee that the hotel gets anything in the future. That would be something we would have to potentially bring back to this body and council. So I think that's all understood by the developer and everyone involved.
Any questions, comments? All right, we can take a motion. I have a motion and a second. Item passes as well. Item 4F is an agreement between the City of Oklahoma City and Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust outlining the terms of an allocation from TIF 9 and TIF 15 to support the construction of the Clara Looper Civil Rights Center, not to exceed $500,000.
So as you'll recall, we have already approved the allocation, and these are a little bit strange that it's, we've done these before where it's an allocation from one city entity to another. So it's really, different city entities. So instead of an economic development agreement, we have a memorandum of agreement. Really kind of spells out how the funds will be transferred and moved between city funds. Other than that, there's not a whole lot exciting on this.
All right, if there's no questions or comments, we can take a motion on that item as well. Please vote. The item passes. Item 4G is an agreement between the City of Oklahoma City and the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust outlining the terms of an allocation from TIF 2 and the Omni Stabilization Funds to support the construction of the MAPS 4 multipurpose stadium, not to exceed $30 million.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is similar to the previous item of, this was something we approved. This is just laying out kind of how the funds will flow between the projects. Do want to say on this one, just a reminder, it's 20 coming out of TIF 2, 20 million. 10 was coming from those Omni Stabilization Funds. And as a reminder, Council, we set up set up a fund with a basket of different revenue sources that went in to fund the Omni debt. And again, there was a threshold that you can't touch the funds unless it goes over, it goes over 2 times debt service, basically 2 times the maximum annual debt service setting in that fund. So at the time, and it's still the case, the funds exceeded that benchmark. So some of those were peeled off for any other lawful purpose, and that's what was allocated previously. So this is just the agreement laying out the details of the funds moving around between city entities.
Thank you. All right, we can take a motion on item 4G. Please vote. The item passes. Item 4H is the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust regular meeting schedule for 2026. Mr. Siddle.
Yes, sir, just setting the trust meeting schedule, so pretty boring other than that.
Do we need to vote on that? Oh, we do. Can I get a motion, please? We have a motion, a second. The item passes. Item 5 on the agenda is the General Manager's Report. Ms. McSpadden.
I don't have any comments unless anybody has questions about it. It's pretty straightforward this month.
No questions for Ms. McSpadden? None?
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. All right. Item 5 is the General Manager's Report for, oh wait, I'm sorry, that's what we just did. Item 6, any comments from staff? Any trustees' comments? Have any citizens signed up to be heard? No? All right. That brings us to item 7. We're adjourned.